This is everything you need to know about the upcoming second round matchup between the Denver Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. This series feels like one of those pivotal moments in the history of the league. One of those, alright, are you really that guy? And if so, it's time to show it. And right now, it is go time in the career of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And really, for the Thunder as a unit, they're up against a battle-tested championship team in the Denver Nuggets, led by the three-time MVP Nikola Jokic. And this is a series that's shaping up to be a head-to-head battle of the two MVP talents of this season, with SGA going toe-to-toe with the Joker. And to add another layer to the drama, we've also got Russell Westbrook, now on the Nuggets, facing off against the team where it all began for his career. That alone brings a ton of emotional weight, but let's be honest, this series is really about the two MVPs. It's SGA trying to claim his spot among the game's greats, and Jokic doing everything in his power to remind us that he is still the best in the business. When you go back and look at the regular season series between these two teams, it's actually tied 2 games apiece, with each team winning in both buildings. However, there is some important context behind those numbers. The first 2 matchups were played before Isaiah Hartenstein had even suited up for the Thunder, as he was still coming back from that early season wrist injury. In that time, they did split those games, and then we got what really matters, a back-to-back in March, where both teams were relatively healthy and were locked in. That's where things started to reveal a little bit more about what we might see in this upcoming playoff series. On the first night, a nationally televised game, Oklahoma City handled their business, blitzing the Denver Nuggets in the fourth quarter, walking out with a 127-103 win. The Thunder held Jokic to one of his more quieter nights of the season, but because it's Nikola Jokic, that was still 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 assists on 10 of 23 shooting, so a little bit less effective than usual. And despite the fact that those numbers would be great for anybody else, for Jokic, that is a quieter night. On the other side of things, SGA put up an absolute clinic, going off for 40 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, and 3 blocks on 15 of 32 shooting. Jalen Williams was the perfect right-hand man in this one, dropping 26 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 stocks, while living at the free throw line. That night, OKC looked like a team that had fully arrived. But the second night, a completely different story. Denver came out with a purpose, clearly taking the blowout loss personally, and between Jamal Murray and Jokic, they unleashed a statement. Murray, who had a quiet showing the night before, exploded for 34 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, and even got to the free throw line 9 times while shooting 50% from the floor. And for the Joker, he returned to his dominant form, posting a monstrous 35-point, 18-rebound, 8 performance game while being deadly effective, shooting 15 of 20 from the floor, completely dismantling the Thunder's defense. The Thunder still got solid scoring efforts from Lou Dort, who went ballistic in this game, making 8 threes, along with 25 from SGA and 20 from Hartenstein. But Denver was simply too good. They walked away with a 140-127 win, clapping back at the young Thunder, showing everyone why they won the championship. What really stood out in the second game was Denver's massive defensive adjustment. They went all in on taking the ball out of SGA's hands, double teaming him the moment he crossed half court and forcing anybody else to beat them. Then behind that initial trap, they dropped into a zone, daring the rest of the Thunder to make plays. And it absolutely worked. OKC struggled to adjust in real time, and it's a tactic Denver could very well bring back in this series. That being said, there are still 2 major statistical advantages Oklahoma City has in this matchup. Areas where they can tip the balance in their favor, and that could be enough to swing the series their way. What those advantages are, and whether they can capitalize on them, might just be the biggest difference between a breakthrough and a harsh lesson from a team that's already been there. Oklahoma City has been the best team in the league all season long, and in my recent video where I broke down every 60-win team's best chances of the championship, uncovering who I like the most, spoiler alert, I had the Thunder at the very top. Last year, they were the youngest 1 seed in NBA history, but their inexperience and a glaring flaw on the glass came back to bite them in round 2. Rebounding was their Achilles heel, and in the playoffs, that weakness was fully exposed by Dallas, who outmuscled them on the glass. But that is where things changed in the offseason. The Thunder made a clear effort to plug the hole, bringing in veteran guys like Alex Caruso and, most importantly, Isaiah Hartenstein. Guys who do not need the ball, know how to defend, and more importantly, in the case of Isaiah Hartenstein, know how to rebound at a high level. And the result, a dramatic leap on the boards. OKC went from being one of the worst rebounding teams in the league to now sitting 11th best. That's not just a surface level stat, it's fundamentally changed the way they can play. They're now closing out defensive possessions more consistently, which has made their defense even better, as they're not giving up as many second chance looks to their opponents. And that is going to be critical against Denver. The Nuggets rank 4th in the NBA for rebounding, and if the Thunder get bullied on the glass again, it could become a slow bleed that ends up costing them the series. This will not be on just Hartenstein and Holmgren though. It's going to require a full team effort, with everybody boxing out, everybody staying physical, hustling their way to stopping Denver from getting rebounds. Because the last thing the Thunder needs is to force a stop, only to have to defend one of the best offensive systems in the NBA a second time on the same possession. That being said though, while Denver might have a slight edge on the boards, there is a much bigger statistical advantage in the way of Oklahoma City, and that's the turnover battle. What the Thunder have done this season in that department almost defies logic. They rank 1st in the NBA for opponents' turnovers per game, forcing 17 a night, while also ranking 1st in taking care of the ball themselves, only coughing it up 11.7 times a game. That kind of margin is ludicrous. Now look across at Denver, and the alarm bells start ringing. The Nuggets rank just 17th in turnovers, giving the ball up 14.3 times a night, and they're near the bottom in the league when it comes to forcing them, 25th in opponent turnovers a game at just 13. That is a huge swing in Oklahoma City's favor. Expect the Thunder to lean hard into that advantage, swarming Jokic on the catch, digging at drivers, rotating fast, and forcing Denver into uncomfortable, hurried possessions. We saw them do exactly that against Memphis in round 1, as the Grizzlies ranked 28th in the league for turnovers, and the Thunder absolutely feasted, putting up a ridiculous 26.3 points off of turnovers per game, while only giving up 10 a night themselves. That is not just good, it's almost unbelievable. And the most wild part is, OKC doesn't need to win that battle every night to have a shot. They do it as just a natural byproduct of their identity. And where do a lot of these turnover points come from? The fast break. Oklahoma City is absolutely lethal when they get out and run, and in that same first round series, they proved it once again. They put up 19.8 fast break points per game against the Grizzlies, and when you combine that with their ball pressure and pace, it is a nightmare for teams who aren't built to keep up, and Denver might just be one of those teams. They're not especially fast or athletic, and when they do turn the ball over, they tend to pay for it, giving up 16.6 fast break points per game, one of the worst marks in the league. That is 2 giant red flags waving for Denver: turnovers and transition defense. And to make matters worse, Oklahoma City is also elite at defending the break. In fact, they are number 1 in the NBA at it, holding opponents to just 12.3 per game out on the break. That's especially intriguing, given Denver does like to run at times, especially when they get those rebounds and are able to leak out through their athletic guys like Russell Westbrook or Christian Brown. But now they're facing a team that is tailor-made to shut that option down, taking away some of those easier points that the Nuggets often generate. Denver may have the experience and arguably the best player on the planet, but this Oklahoma City team is different. They've patched up their weaknesses, sharpened their strengths, and are coming into this series series with a clear game plan and 2 massive areas where they can cause some serious damage. But now that we've got all of the analytics out of the way, it is time to get into what might actually decide the series, the individual matchups. Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to guard Nikola Jokic, and someone's going to have to stay in front of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This could come down to who can win their battle and who gets hunted. Let's start off with the biggest question looming over the entire series. How on earth is Oklahoma City supposed to defend Nikola Jokic? The Clippers threw everything they had at him. Different looks, traps, soft doubles, and even trying to bait him into being a scorer instead of a passer. But nothing really worked. Outside of Ivica Zubac, the Clippers had no real answer. And even with all of that, Jokic still finished the series averaging 25.3 points, 11.8 rebounds, and 10.5 assists per game. Shooting an absurd 59% true shooting. That's what you get with Jokic. Even when your defense appears to be working, it still kind of doesn't. If we flip the court and look at Denver's side of the ball, I'd expect the defensive assignments to start with Christian Braun on SGA, Jamal Murray trying to hide on Lou Dort, Aaron Gordon taking on Jalen Williams, Michael Porter Jr. matched up with Chet Holmgren, and Jokic sticking with Hartenstein. The Gordon on J-Dub matchup does make a lot of sense, given the fact that Gordon has the size and foot speed to challenge him, while also being able to stay in front. But if the Thunder start exploiting MPJ's lack of rim protection, particularly on backdoor cuts or drives to the cup, they might have to rethink that matchup. If MPJ can't be a reliable last line of help and the Thunder begin to exploit it, they might be forced into putting him on Jalen Williams, which could open up the door for J-Dub to have a massive series. And if it does happen, I also would not be surprised if we see Porter Jr. lose his starting minutes to Russell Westbrook. And as wild as it sounds, it happened a little bit at the start of the Clippers series, and especially when guarding Jalen Williams, Russ does have the quickness and aggression to stick with J-Dub, especially on the perimeter, in the way that MPJ simply doesn't. Porter Jr. on Chet is also an interesting one, but it isn't as wild as it might seem. Chet isn't a bruiser. He's not trying to post you up or put you under the rim. He's looking to get to jump shots, using pump fakes, stretching the floor, and picking his spots. That type of finesse-based offensive approach is something that gives MPJ at least a chance of just contesting. Porter struggles when he's matched up against guys who are too quick or too physical. Chet isn't either, as he's methodical and makes the matchup somewhat manageable for Denver. Then there's the Brown on SGA assignment, which is obviously massive. But Brown won't be on an island. Denver's going to throw a lot at SGA, showing at the level, dropping back, mixing in some zone, and even trying to trap him at half court. They leaned into that trap-heavy scheme last time they played in the regular season, and it worked, forcing the ball out of Shai's hands and throwing off OKC's entire offensive system. But here's the thing, the Thunder may have seen that on film. They should be ready, and they're going to have counters. So now the question becomes, is Denver even capable of stopping SGA if they know what's coming? Or is this one of those series where it just won't matter? Denver does have more options to throw at SGA off the bench with Russell Westbrook and Peyton Watson, guys who can give good defensive stints. But guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over the course of a 7-game series is a different kind of task, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they're up for the challenge. Now looking at how the Thunder will match up on defense. For me, this is how the matchups will go. I think we'll see Lou Dort on Jamal Murray, Hartenstein on Jokic, Chet on Aaron Gordon, J-Dub on Christian Braun, and SGA on Michael Porter Jr. These aren't set in stone, as coach Mark Daigneault has been creative all season, but they give us a strong starting point. We could definitely see adjustments. One of those might be moving Jalen Williams onto Aaron Gordon and putting Chet onto Christian Braun instead. In theory, that would allow Holmgren to cheat off Christian Braun in the corners and be a roamer, ready to help down low when Jokic goes to work in the post. That could be a huge advantage if Braun isn't making his threes, but it could also end up being a necessary adjustment, because if Chet is left alone on Gordon and AG starts to punish him in the post, that could turn into a real problem. Holmgren just isn't physically strong enough yet to handle Gordon deep in the post, and if that becomes a real source of offense from the Nuggets, that might also force the change. Speaking of post-ups, that is going to be a key element of Jokic's approach in the series. In the regular season against the Thunder, he posted up a total of 62 times across 4 games, over 15 post-ups a game. That's 50% more often than he posted up against the rest of the league. So we're likely going to see a more traditional back you down Jokic rather than a face-up mid-range guy we saw against the Clippers. The game plan is simple. Draw the double team, find the shooter, and if the help doesn't come, go get a bucket. That means Isaiah Hartenstein has a huge role to play. He'll be the one down there battling Jokic possession after possession, and it's absolutely critical he stays out of foul trouble, something he often has issues with, because behind him, Oklahoma City doesn't have the strength or size to really slow Jokic down. Chet would get bullied, and the other Jalen Williams really isn't that good of a defender, as Jokic could potentially have his way with the Thunder if that happens. One other thing you should be keeping an eye on is Denver's ability to set hard screens, something that becomes especially more important when you're trying to free Jamal Murray from Lou Dort. Guys like Brown and even Westbrook can set solid disruptive screens that might force the Thunder into switches. Denver will try to find any way to get Jamal better looks, especially if Lou Dort is glued to him. That is where the chess match begins, because frankly, there aren't a lot of easier matchups on the Thunder. Everybody can switch, everyone competes, and everybody fights hard over screens. But playoff Jamal has been a different animal all throughout his career, and if Denver can give him a sliver of daylight, potentially by switching SGA or one of the bigs onto him, it could open the floodgates. The Thunder knows this though. I expect to see them pick up Jamal full court quite often, trying to wear him down, making him work before he even gets into these actions. We've seen teams try this before against Denver. Think back to Minnesota last postseason. And when this happens, Denver often responds by taking the ball out of Jamal's hands and letting Aaron Gordon bring it up the court instead. That puts Jamal into more of a shooting guard role, coming off movement and secondary actions, which could actually work in their favor when they are trying to get more favorable matchups for Jamal. But really, this whole series is going to come down to a battle of two contrasting identities. Denver, the well-oiled high IQ system that thrives on structure and control, and Oklahoma City, the young, hungry, ultra-physical group that brings relentless ball pressure and defensive identity. One wants to slow things down and run their sets, and the other wants to speed you up, turn you over, and bury you in transition. But the question is, whose style will bend first? Over the course of the series, I think we are going to see stretches where both teams are in complete control. When Denver's offense is humming and they are winning the battle on the glass, they'll generate a ton of extra possessions and high quality looks. As if they are continuously putting the ball in the basket, the Thunder can't get out on the break. That is when they'll look unstoppable, with the ball moving, Jokic orchestrating, and just getting clean look after clean look. In those moments, the Nuggets will have the flow of the game right where they want it. But then there'll also be stretches where the Thunder can crank up the intensity, where their defense smothers Denver, forces turnovers, and sparks those fast break opportunities. That's when they're at their best, when they turn the game into complete chaos. They'll try and make it physical with the aim to speed up Denver, and suddenly the Nuggets will be playing a style that they simply do not want to play, and that is where Oklahoma City can really take over. So what is my prediction for the series? Oklahoma City has been one of the best teams in the league all season long. This is their moment to prove to the NBA world that they are ready for the challenge, and not just making a deep playoff run, but to actually win it all. Because if they do fall short here, and if a 68-win juggernaut can't make it out of round 2, it's going to cast a shadow over everything they accomplished this season. To be remembered as a historically great team, these these are the types of series that they just have to win, and I believe they will. Between their suffocating defense and also the advantage of rest and recovery after Denver's brutal 7-game series, I'm picking Oklahoma City to win the series in 6 games. But do not get it twisted. This is going to be a war. Every game is going to be a battle, and I expect it to be a lot more physical and hard fought than people realize, as this series has the potential to be one of the best we see in a very long time. And personally, I am super excited. And if you're looking for more playoff breakdowns, don't worry. We've got 2 more incredible matchups in the Eastern Conference, the Knicks versus the Celtics and the Pacers versus the Cavs. And if you want to see my predictions and full breakdowns of those series, you can check out this video now where I show you everything you need to know.